Imagine waking up tomorrow morning, grabbing your phone, and seeing a press conference from your company's CEO. And the announcement is just blunt. The company is initiating a plan to replace 700,000 workers with machines.
Right, which is just a terrifying number to wake up to.
Exactly. And we're not talking about some, shiny, distant sci-fi future. We are talking about right now. Like, the timeline is already in motion.
Yeah, it feels incredibly jarring. It's almost like the inciting incident of a dystopian novel, right?
Right.
But for the global logistics industry, I mean, this is simply the current reality of the labor market.
Which really brings us to the core tension we're looking at in our sources for today's deep dive. We've got this stack of tech journalism, some really heavy-hitting academic research, and deep economic forecasts from PwC.
Oh, that PwC report is wild.
It really is. And they're all looking at this massive wave of AI and robotic automation. But the data presents this completely wild contradiction.
Right, the displacement versus creation thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So on one hand, you have e-commerce giants issuing these stark, very public warnings about massive job displacement, entire workforces being swapped out for metal and code.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, the leading macroeconomic reports predict that this exact same robotic revolution is going to create tens of millions more jobs than it destroys.
Reconciling those two realities is, well, it's the ultimate challenge here. I mean, how do you destroy hundreds of millions of jobs and somehow end up with a net positive?
Right. Think of it a bit like the invention of the tractor.
Oh, that's a good analogy.
Yeah, because the tractor didn't end human labor, just drastically shifted it from the farm to the factory. But the thing is, that transition wasn't instantaneous, and it definitely wasn't painless.
Far from it.
So today, our mission is to look at the mechanics driving this new transition. We need to understand how we get from mass displacement to net job creation, because the mechanics of that shift, they carry massive implications for how you, the listener, need to position your own career.
Absolutely. And to really grasp the sheer scale of this disappearing act, we should probably look at the most immediate battleground, which is the last mile of delivery, because that is where the real friction is happening today.
Right, so that 700,000 number I mentioned earlier, that comes directly from Richard Liu, the CEO of JD.com, which is just an absolute titan of Chinese e-commerce.
Yeah.
At a recent CEO forum, he didn't hedge. He didn't use, corporate buzzwords.
No, he was incredibly direct.
Yeah. He plainly stated that sooner or later, their 700,000 delivery workers will be replaced by robots.
And this strategic pivot, I mean, it's happening globally. We're seeing reports that Amazon has already avoided an estimated 600,000 future hires by leaning heavily into robotics over the last few years.
600,000 future hires, that's huge.
Right, so the human headcount isn't dropping to zero overnight, but the rate of hiring is just plummeting as machines take over the sheer volume. And then you look at companies like DoorDash.
Yes. DoorDash.
Yes.
They recently unveiled their new in-house autonomous delivery robot. They named it Dot.
Dot, yeah.
And the tech journalism source goes really deep on Dot, and it is a highly capable piece of hardware. I mean, we aren't talking about a little remote-controlled toy here.
No, not at all.
Dot travels up to 20 miles per hour, it carries up to 30 pounds of cargo, and it navigates roads, sidewalks, and bike lanes.
And the way it navigates is what's crucial here. It isn't just, following a pre-programmed line painted on the ground. It's actually utilizing cameras, radar, and LiDAR to actively perceive a highly unpredictable urban environment.
Right, dodging pedestrians and stuff.
Exactly. But the robot itself is honestly only half the equation. The real disruption is the software managing a fleet.
Right. DoorDash's autonomous delivery platform. I was reading how they structure this in the sources, and it essentially operates like an AI air traffic control.
That's the perfect way to describe it.
It's crazy. When you order a pizza or a coffee, the AI dynamically analyzes the order weight, the distance, the traffic, the urgency, and then it just decides in real time, does this require a human dasher? Can Dot handle it on the sidewalk? Should we dispatch a drone? Or maybe a larger autonomous vehicle.
It orchestrates this incredibly complex multimodal symphony.
Yeah, it's a symphony.
And the logic there is brutally efficient. I mean, you deploy robots like Dot to handle the simple, repetitive, low-weight trips. That instantly reduces urban traffic congestion and lowers emissions.
Makes sense.
But more importantly, it reserves human workers for the complex, time-sensitive exceptions. Like if Dot encounters a flooded sidewalk or some bizarre construction detour, it doesn't try to guess and risk a crash.
Just stocks, right?
Exactly. It is designed to safely stop and wait for a human remote operator to guide it. So humans become the exception handlers, while the machines handle the baseline volume.
So our sidewalks and bike lanes are just getting crowded with these wheeled delivery bots. But out of the streets and into the factories and retail stores, the leap in technology is even more staggering. Like, we're moving beyond specialized wheeled bots and straight into humanoid robots.
The momentum behind humanoids, particularly in China, is accelerating at just a breakneck pace.
Yeah.
The Ministry of Industry and Information Technology, along with a few other state bodies, they recently launched a nationwide initiative.
And their goal is massive, right?
Oh, yeah. Their stated goal is to deploy over 10,000 humanoid robots across manufacturing, retail, and healthcare by the end of 2026.
Wow.
And this isn't just a pilot program. It is a deliberate, state-backed push to make humanoids a foundational pillar of their industrial economy.
And the startups executing this mandate, they're already operating in the wild. The sources highlight a company called Roboterra. They currently have humanoid robots deployed in logistics hubs for giants like China Post and SF Holding.
Yeah, processing massive volume.
Right, these machines are packing up to 1,200 parcels an hour. But here's the mechanism that just blew my mind. The sources said if a human worker reaches into the box and unexpectedly removes an item while the robot is working, the robot doesn't crash or trigger an error code.
It just adapts.
Yes.
Yeah.
It detects the environmental change on the fly, reaches back, grabs a replacement object, and finishes the task.
And that is the crucial difference between traditional automation and what we now call embodied AI.
Embodied AI. Okay, unpack that a bit.
So a traditional robotic arm on an assembly line is essentially blind. It is programmed to weld the exact same spot in space over and over again. If the car chassis is misaligned by an inch, the robot just welds the empty air.
Right, it doesn't know any better.
Exactly. But embodied AI, like Roboterra's models, uses vision models and neural networks to actually understand its surroundings. It reacts to dynamic, unstructured environments in real time.
Which fundamentally changes what tasks can be automated. There's another startup from the sources, Galbit, running these autonomous Galaxy capsule retail stores.
Oh, the coffee bots.
Yeah, they are already operating inside Family Mart locations in Beijing. And in less than a year, they managed to cut the time it takes a humanoid robot to prepare and deliver a custom coffee from 46 seconds down to just 18 seconds.
That's a massive leap in efficiency.
And meanwhile, their mobile industrial robot, the S1, is hauling 50-kilogram loads around the factory floors for the automaker BAIC and battery giant CATL.
The leap from laboratory validation to large-scale commercial deployment, I mean, it is happening in months, not decades.
Okay, I have to push back a little here, though.
Sure, go ahead.
Because trimming a few seconds off making a latte is, well, it's a great party trick.
Yeah.
And hauling a heavy battery across a warehouse is a solid application of torque. But does a faster mechanical barista actually threaten the global labor force at a macro level? Like, are we really risking a collapse of the job market over this?
Well, the threat to routine labor is not hypothetical. To understand the macro impact, the academic study in our sources points to a deeply sobering historical precedent, which is Foxconn.
Foxconn, right.
Yeah. Between 2012 and 2016, Foxconn enacted an aggressive automation plan across its Chinese manufacturing hubs. And in just 4 years, they replaced over 400,000 assembly line jobs with robots.
400,000 jobs. I mean, that is an entire mid-sized city's worth of employment just wiped out in a single corporate cycle.
And the economic ripple effects were devastating for the displaced workers. The researchers analyzed localized data, and they found that even a moderate surge in local robot adoption, essentially just an average uptick in factories swapping humans for machines in a specific region, it wiped out 7.5% of manufacturing employment in that area.
7.5%.
Furthermore, it drove down wages for the remaining exposed workers by nearly 9%. So the capacity for robotics to permanently hollow out routine manual labor is statistically proven.
So if Foxconn can eliminate 400,000 jobs, and JD.com is preparing to eliminate 700,000, and you extrapolate that across agriculture, manufacturing, and retail, I mean, how does society not just spiral into mass unemployment?
And this brings us to the great paradox of automation. It's beautifully illustrated by the PwC economic forecast for China by 2037.
Right. The numbers in that PwC report are a complete mind bender. They project that over the next roughly 15 years, AI and related technologies will absolutely devastate existing labor models. They're saying it'll displace a massive 26% of existing jobs.
Yeah, 26%.
That is over 200 million jobs gone.
Oh.
But, and this is the wild part, they forecast this exact same disruption will simultaneously generate a 38% increase in jobs.
Right.
Nearly 300 million new roles created, leaving us with a net positive boost of 12% or 93 million new jobs.
It sounds fundamentally impossible at first glance.
I am admitting complete confusion on this one. You've got to walk me through the mechanism here. How does firing a cashier or replacing a warehouse worker with an embodied AI result in a net gain of 93 million jobs?
It is driven by a foundational economic concept known as the income effect.
Okay, income effect.
Right. So when technology, whether it's a 19th century steam engine or a 21st century humanoid robot, when it lowers the cost of production and improves the quality of goods, the dynamics of a competitive free market force companies to pass those savings on to consumers.
Because if Company A doesn't lower their prices after automating, Company B will, and they'll just steal all the market share.
Exactly. So everyday goods and services become significantly cheaper. When things are cheaper, consumers become wealthier in real purchasing power terms.
Right.
Your paycheck might be exactly the same, but it stretches much further. You have more disposable income. And historically, human beings do not just stuff that extra disposable income into a mattress.
No, we definitely don't.
We spend it, we buy more goods, and more importantly, we buy more services.
Okay, let me ground this in a real example to see if I'm getting it.
Yeah.
Let's say DoorDash's automated platform drastically reduces the cost of getting my groceries and meals delivered. And at the same time, highly mechanized farming brings down the cost of the food itself. Suddenly, I have an extra $200 at the end of the month. I decide to take that money and go to a concert or hire a personal trainer or maybe start taking a pottery class.
And in doing so, you have just generated employment for a musician, a fitness instructor, and a ceramics teacher.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Right. This explosion of new, widespread consumer demand ripples across the entire economy. It creates millions of entirely new jobs to meet it. The vast majority of these 300 million newly created jobs will have absolutely nothing to do with programming, AI, or building robots.
They're just regular jobs.
Exactly. They are simply the byproduct of a richer society demanding more human-centric services.
So if we apply the income effect across the whole economy, how does that actually map out? Like, if farming is hollowing out, are those rural workers migrating into manufacturing to build all these new delivery bots?
Well, the PwC data breaks down the sectoral shifts quite clearly. Let's look at agriculture. It's projected to see a net loss of 10%, which equates to about 22 million jobs disappearing.
Okay, 22 million.
Yeah, and this is driven by heavy mechanization of farming equipment, but also a shift toward laboratory-based food production, think synthetic meats, and advanced genomics replacing traditional livestock farming.
So just far less manual labor required out in the fields. What happens to industry and manufacturing then?
Industry is actually projected to remain effectively neutral, seeing a net gain of just 3%.
Really? Just neutral?
Yeah, because what we are seeing here is an intense internal churn. The low-skill routine assembly line jobs, like the ones lost at Foxconn, those are permanently gone. However, they were replaced on a nearly one-to-one basis by high-skill manufacturing roles.
Right, because someone has to build the robots.
Exactly. You need advanced technicians to design, maintain, troubleshoot, and export the millions of robots and AI-enabled hardware units flooding the market.
And what about the 250 million new urban migrants that are projected to move into China's cities by 2050? Where do they fit into this equation?
They largely drive the boom in construction. PwC estimates construction will see a massive net gain of 23%, creating roughly 14 million jobs.
14 million. That makes sense.
Right, because building the smart cities, upgrading the power grids to handle the massive compute requirements of AI, and developing the infrastructure to house hundreds of millions of new urbanites, that requires an immense amount of physical labor. Even if specialized machines assist with the heavy lifting, you still need humans.
Which leaves services as the ultimate sink for new employment.
Services is unequivocally the big winner here. PwC projects a staggering net gain of 29% or 97 million new jobs.
97 million. That is just astronomical.
It is. As that income effect takes hold and the middle class becomes newly enriched, their demand for personalized services just skyrockets. I mean, AI can prepare a coffee in 18 seconds, but it cannot easily replace the human touch required in nursing, early childhood education, elder care, or, highly personalized leisure and entertainment.
So the machines handle the routine volume, while humans handle the relationships and the nuance.
Precisely.
Okay, the macroeconomic theory is fascinating, and 97 million new jobs looks fantastic on a spreadsheet in 2037. But there is a glaring disconnect here.
Yeah.
Macroeconomic theory doesn't buy groceries for the 700,000 delivery workers losing their jobs at JD.com today. The gap between individual ruin in the short term and an economic boom in the long term, I mean, that is treacherous. How does society actually bridge that gap without collapsing?
You've hit on the most critical issue. That friction, the human cost of the transition, is arguably the most precarious element of this entire technological revolution.
And Richard Liu at JD.com, he actually acknowledged this directly, which I found interesting. When he warned that robots would eventually take over, he made this parallel, almost unbelievable promise.
The Nirvana plan.
Right. He stated that JD.com would not fire a single frontline worker. Instead, the company launched the Nirvana plan. They partnered with over 120 schools with the stated goal of taking their army of couriers and retraining them as robot maintenance engineers and AI data trainers.
It is a phenomenal PR narrative and undeniably ambitious. But the academic researchers in our sources highlight the immense, almost unprecedented practical difficulty of what JD.com is attempting here.
I mean, the Nirvana plan sounds a bit like trying to outrun a train that you yourself are building.
That's a great way to put it.
If you have spent the last 10 years riding a scooter through the rain delivering packages, transitioning into an AI data trainer in a laboratory environment is not a seamless pivot. You were talking about an aging workforce, many of whom originated from rural areas with limited formal education, suddenly being thrust into a high-tech paradigm.
The sheer friction of that retraining effort, it really cannot be overstated. And the researchers warn that if corporate retraining initiatives like this fail, we face the severe threat of what they call premature deindustrialization.
Premature deindustrialization.
Yeah.
What does that actually look like on the ground?
Well, when low-skill workers are displaced by robots and they can't make that leap to high-tech engineering or high-end service roles, they don't just magically disappear from the economy.
Right.
They are invariably pushed into the informal economy. These are off-the-books jobs with zero stability, no healthcare benefits, and absolutely no welfare protections.
So it essentially rips the labor market in half.
It creates extreme job polarization. The urban tech elites,
Yeah.
the software engineers designing the algorithms, the venture capitalists owning the server farms, they capture the vast majority of the new wealth generated by the AI productivity boom.
While everyone else gets left behind.
Exactly. Meanwhile, the displaced rural and low-skill workers suffer severe, prolonged wage stagnation. The Gini coefficient, which is the economic metric used to measure inequality, it essentially stretches until it snaps. The gap between the ultra-rich and the working class becomes insurmountable.
So how do we prevent the train from running off the tracks? The researchers looking at this potential crisis outline three main objective policy levers designed to mitigate this displacement effect and prevent widespread social unrest.
Right, and they're pretty practical.
Yeah. The first systemic lever they identify is the aggressive expansion of inclusive social safety nets. If we're entering an era of a highly fluid, volatile labor market where millions of jobs are disappearing and appearing simultaneously, traditional employment benefits just aren't enough.
No, not at all.
Things like unemployment insurance, accessible health care, and basic income support, they need to be much broader to catch the millions of people falling into those transitional gaps.
And the second solution focuses on geographic labor mobility. This is particularly relevant in the context of China's hukou system.
Right, the hukou system. Break that down for us.
So the hukou essentially ties a citizen's social benefits, like their access to public schools and subsidized health care, to their registered hometown.
Okay.
If the jobs of the future are heavily concentrated in new coastal smart cities, workers need to be able to move there legally. If an out-of-work rural factory employee can't migrate to where the new service jobs are without losing their family's entire safety net, they are effectively trapped.
That's brutal.
It is. Reforming those residency systems is critical to letting the labor force naturally flow to where the new demand is.
Got it. And the third major recommendation from the academic sources is fostering a gradual, managed rollout of automation. The researchers suggest that leaving the deployment of robotics entirely to the breakneck speed of the free market is just dangerous.
It's too fast.
Yeah. So they propose linking corporate tax incentives or state subsidies directly to verifiable retraining efforts.
Basically making it financially beneficial for a company to slow down the deployment of capital just enough to allow their human workforce the time required to actually learn new skills.
You modulate the speed of the disruption so society can actually absorb the shockwaves.
Precisely.
It's an incredible landscape to take in. We started today looking at an immediate reality where 20-mile-per-hour sidewalk robots and highly adaptable humanoids are actively displacing hundreds of millions of routine jobs across logistics, manufacturing, and retail.
But the paradox holds true. That initial destruction acts as the catalyst. By driving down the cost of production, AI triggers the income effect, raising real consumer wealth and ultimately generating the demand that could create nearly 100 million entirely new roles, largely centered around human interaction.
Which brings us entirely back to you, the listener. The massive takeaway from all these sources is that obsessing over whether AI is going to take your specific job might just be the wrong framing. The machine is already built. It is literally rolling down the bike lane right now, making complex routing decisions on the fly.
The more urgent question is whether you are actively positioning yourself in the sectors of the economy that AI is guaranteed to expand. Are you cultivating the skills that machines inherently struggle with? The roles requiring complex, abstract problem-solving, high-level creativity, and that irreplaceable human empathy.
Because if the ultimate promise of this automation boom actually comes to pass, if it really does generate massive global wealth and incredibly cheap goods, creating a society where our primary economic function is largely just to provide personalized services, education, and care to one another.
It really changes everything.
It does. Does a world entirely managed by machines actually make us more human? It is a fascinating space to watch. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Keep an eye out for Dot on the Sidewalk.